It's a very exciting time to be a wrestling fan.
If you're in the business of making money, it would behoove you to be a safe and inclusive space.
Whether you agree with what someone is saying has nothing to do with his right to say it.
Hello, is this the Velveteen Dream?
No, this is Patrick.
I'm so sorry to call back again, sir, but your voice sounds very similar to a gentleman named the Velveteen Dream, and he's not supposed to be within 5 feet of children, and considering that you guys are selling Happy Meals...
No, this is Patrick.
Look, we know it's you, Dream. We can see you outside the window talking on the phone with us right now. We're gonna contact your parole officer. You're not supposed to be anywhere near any joke.
No, this is Patrick.
I was not reading my Miranda rights. So keep that shit, sir. The case has already failed. You did a shitty job. I was not reading my Miranda rights.
What's up, y'all? My name is Devontae, and I sacrificed my time so you don't have to. Okay, so I've been trying to figure out something all day. What can we do to meet the AEW fanboys in the middle? You know what I mean? Like, we can bring everybody together and we can meet in the middle. And in particular, what can we do in order to come to a conclusion as to what we can do to save AEW? Because folks, with numbers that they're currently doing at the moment, the dwindling, decreasing viewership number, the ratio in comparison to where it was a couple of years ago, undeniably, you can say whatever you want. In real time, they are dying. It's not to say that they can't recover, but currently at the moment, yes, AEW is by definition dying. When you are at the lowest peak of your entire existence, even more so past the point when you were sharing audience members with NXT, you're getting lower viewership numbers when you were splitting it down the middle. I don't know what to say. There's no excuse to that right now. They're dying. They are undeniably dying. And I've been trying to figure out for the longest, actually for this whole entire day, I was thinking to myself, how do we meet the AEW fans in the middle where we can all agree upon AEW still being in business, staying alive, and we can start the recovery process to put it into a position where it can actually battle WWE. And I've come to an appropriate conclusion that I think everybody can agree on, because if not this, then I guess at this point it is technically a cult, right? I can understand wanting to, rep your company, which is fucking stupid in itself, but I can at least understand the sentiments, right? But when you're now starting to say rep a billionaire, now it's a cult by definition. That's like the outright definition of a cult. So here's my conclusion, okay? Get rid of Tony Khan. Straight up. And I don't feel bad saying that, because with everybody else, at the very least, it's like, okay, well, you may need your money to help your family or do this or do that. With Tony Khan, there's nothing of the sorts that's occurring. He's a fucking billionaire. He's the son of a billionaire. He will be perfectly fine. And when I say get rid of Tony Khan, I don't mean kick him out of the company. But what I mean is get him out of the day-to-day basis. The dude clearly has no fucking clue what he's doing, and I would like for him to take a position very similar to Ted Turner and have somebody who actually knows what the fuck they're doing directly underneath him, and he's making all the day-to-day decisions. Now, if you have the Kenny Omegas of the world or the Young Bucks in the world who have a problem with that, then they could take it up with this guy who should, I would think, theoretically usurp any of their positions from a power standpoint. And if he decides that he wants to downgrade their positions, or hell, maybe even outright fire them, not that I'm saying that should be a thing that you should do, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the Young Bucks or Kenny Omega aren't valuable to the company in other ways. But if he wants to downgrade their power, and to be quite frank, honestly, I go as far as to say take away their actual positions as far as employees of the company and make them strictly talent, I don't have any problems with that at all. What I'm saying is we need a clean house in AEW. Same way how WWE is cleaning the house of the McMahons, we need a clean house of AEW. Anything that's attached to Tony Khan and that indie mentality man site needs to do away. It needs to go away. Can we all agree upon that? AEW fanboys, meet me in the middle, huh? I'm begging for your company to still be into a position where one day maybe it can get into an actual position to combat WWE. It can have some legitimate competition in professional wrestling, not be bored out of our fucking minds and giving WWE an excuse to want to coast and rest on their laurels. We can meet in the middle. We can shake hands. True civil war, right? Over. You and the WWE fanboys can shake hands, and I think you both will agree that Tony Khan isn't the person who's right for the position currently at the moment, right? Now, how you decide whether or not another person takes that position, or maybe you want to promote somebody from within the company, that's up to you, right? Now, personally, I would probably think outside the box, try to fill in a couple of things. I'm not saying that professional wrestling has to be a fucking democracy or anything like that, because in the end of the day, it's still at least AEW in that case, is a privatized company, right? So they can make whatever decisions that they want to make, and obviously they don't have to listen to me. But, if everybody wants to get together, and maybe they should all come together as a company, and then, throw around some names that they feel that could probably actually head the company, go in a completely different direction than what Tony and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega were doing, I'd be perfectly okay with that. At least to see where it goes, and then if you don't like it, well, you just do it again, right? And one may even argue you should stay within the company, at least within those grounds, so you don't have to, take a person from outside the streets, bring them in, you don't want to use them, take them away, and then, it just seems like a waste of time, right? Find someone within, use them to the best of their abilities as far as what you feel they can get over with the company, give them all the resources that they need, let them really be the ones to run the ship. If everything works out good, then they are the president of the company, not the CEO. That will always be Tony Khan, that will always be Shad Khan, but the president. The guy who's the shot caller to day-to-day stuff, and Tony can worry about the business aspects of the company, right? That's what he should worry about. He has no business running a wrestling company as far as doing the day-to-day things, because he clearly has no fucking clue in what he's doing. To the degree that I feel that the numbers right now represent, how can I put this? If someone else was in Tony Khan's position, let's just say somebody else was filling his shoes, and Tony Khan was a guy directly above that person who's filling his shoes at the moment, right? Would Tony Khan be perfectly fine with letting that person consistently run the day-to-day operation, seeing how the numbers are consistently dwindling at the moment? I would think the fuck not. That'd be stupid as hell, right? For any businessman to let that actually occur. But if you ask me, personally speaking, you really want to think outside the box. And I know people in the audience are going to probably groan at this. They're going to probably bitch. They're probably going to moan. No, Devontae, no. We don't want to see any of that. We want to see actual wrestling. Wrestling. You can get that on the pay-per-views. You can get a special event happening once in a while on the show. What we really need to see, and what we really need honestly in professional wrestling, is to connect to the wrestlers first before we start to engage with their matches overall. I've been saying that for a couple of years now, and I feel the best person for the job to actually get across that point would be someone on the lines of a Vince Russo. Now, you may say to yourself, Vince Russo, huh, Devontae? You talking about the guy who ruined WCW? Yeah, and I'm also talking about the guy who actually saved WWE. Two things can be correct at the same time, right? You can always have somebody, as far as a consultant is considered, to maybe valid or look at what Vince Russo is doing, throw back pointers, if you will, not give him complete free reign. I think that's what Tony Khan should be there for, to kind of bring in some common sense elements into this. But at the same time, don't let Tony Khan be the person to actually make the creative in itself, right? Because as much as people want to talk about Vince Russo, always remember, yes, he has 100 terrible fucking ideas, but he actually cultivates around 105 ideas, and those 5 ideas happen to be fucking gold, Jerry. Gold, Jerry, it's fucking gold. And it's up to you to decipher what is good and what is bad, right? And for people who are afraid that Vince Russo is going to go too far, look, the dude is almost in his 70s right now, okay? We are far removed from all the stuff that was happening during the Attitude Era, okay? I'm pretty sure none of that stuff would fly today, obviously. And Vince ain't going to probably go out his way to want to do something on the lines of that. I'm pretty sure Vince is more wiser nowadays, where I feel he would still take elements from the Attitude Era, but try to do it in a more tasteful manner. I would just like to see somebody in the position to not actually care so much for the wrestling aspect of it, right? Because for all the people who I feel will fill that role that Tony will leave if someone actually were to be in that position, I feel they would still be too wrestling-centric. Whether you take someone like a Jim Cornette, hypothetically, and put him in that spot, a little bit too wrestling-centric for me. Love the guy to death. You put Jim Ross in that position. One, I don't think he's actually in a health position to want to take a job like that, but also, it's going to be, more wrestling stuff in the end of the day. The only person who I feel who has a wrestling-oriented mind who will probably fill their role fantastically and still get a bunch of things over from a storyline aspect and be very consistent with it, especially to see what he can do with a bunch of money underneath his belt, will be someone like a Paul Heyman. But obviously, he's working with WWE, so that's not going to be the case. So if you can't get Paul E at your company, you should probably go get Vince Russo, right? That's at least what I'm thinking at the moment. At least give it a trial run to see where it goes. Now, obviously, I know Tony Khan is never going to do any of this. Obviously, we're just pie in the sky here because we know his ego won't let him subside. He can easily still, and I said it once and I'll say it again, he could easily still be with the company. He could still do whatever the fuck he wants because he's the co-owner of the company. But he wants to be the guy to run the creative. He wants to be the guy to be like, see guys, when we eventually get to which is never going to happen with the way this motherfucker thinks, but when we make it to the promised land, I want to be able to say that I was the one steering the ship the entire time. What you see, Tony, here's the problem. You're crashing into barriers. You're crashing into rocks. You're crashing onto an island upcoming right now at the moment, and it doesn't seem as if you know what the hell you're currently doing right now. That's why I'm saying we need to put people in different positions to see what the hell goes on and see whether or not they can actually benefit the company in a positive way. Whether you're talking about overall business, whether you're talking about the superstars' morale, whether you're talking about overall, just the company in general. I want to see how the company thrives underneath new leadership. And what's the benefits that come out of new leadership also outside of the company morale being boosted up because everybody gets to be on television? What's the benefits from looking at your profits soar through the air because, you know, people give a shit about the actual wrestling now? People actually want to see the wrestlers and themselves being indebted into? Well, obviously, that just benefits the health of the wrestling business, right? A healthy wrestling business is a healthy pop culture, in my opinion. Always has been, always will be. But obviously, there are going to be some negatives that come out of all of this too, right? Personally speaking, not only do you just cut down on the in-ring gashing, but sacrifices will indeed have to be made. For everybody who happens to be there, I said it once and I'll say it again. The key to having relatability, first step in my opinion to having relatability with your wrestlers or your wrestlers with your fans, is to minimize it as much as possible. When you have too many guys, no one is getting over, okay? Too many over people, no one's getting over, right? That's the whole cliche, right? Well, okay, how do we fix that problem? I think it's pretty obvious. We cut some talent. A lot of talent. Give them a nice severance package, though. Let them be on the outskirts for about 3 months. No different than WWE. Excuse me. Pretty much living out the rest of their contract. And then once the time comes for separation to occur, their contract expires, you never have to deal with them ever again. And we get to the point where we actually prioritize the roster to around 40 at the bare maximum, 50 superstars. You create divisions out of those superstars. Fuck that whole Power 25 bullshit that they have. That shit doesn't matter. That shit doesn't work. No one gives a fuck about that. Tony doesn't give a fuck about that. He's not consistent with it. But you need to focus directly on the core audience, right? You need to focus on the fact that when you go to these pay-per-view shows, you're not having 13 matches for 5 hours for the sake of having 13 matches for 5 hours. All you really need is 7, 8, 9 matches, 2.5 hours. Get the fuck in, get the fuck out. Stories being told that are concluding from all the build that you've been doing for 4 to 5 weeks coming up into this pay-per-view show with all the superstars involved in each storyline coming onto the pay-per-view and getting over in that minute like that, right? And here's the thing. I say cap it at 50 superstars, but as you start to grow, as you start to make your way towards the point where people are starting to get over, then you can start funneling in superstars little by little. Not bringing in 10 to 20 superstars from fucking AAA and New Japan Pro Wrestling at one time and expecting them to get over, only to fucking use them for 1 or 2 nights just to put them on Rampage where they're now a mainstay. No. Funnel in 1, maybe 2, at max 3 superstars every quarterly. That's all you need. And by quarterly, I mean every 3 months. Just funnel in 1 superstar, maybe a month if you want to do it like that. At max, you should probably have 12 new debuting people throughout the year. But first, establish that year and get over your talent. Make sure your talent is relevant and relatable to everybody. That's how it worked in the year 2000 for WWE. That's why you could probably look at their European division, for an example, and say that the European division was more over than some of the main event superstars today. Their third string was more over than their main eventers today. Don't believe me? Eddie Guerrero was a European champion in the mid 2000. Yeah. Going to Backlash, Eddie Guerrero was the European champion. That's how much talent that they had. That's how much supply that they had. Yeah, Eddie was a European champion. So yes, when I say you probably want to minimize your roster and try to get those people over, yeah. And then you bring in the Vince Russo into the equation, because now he's going to give every person a reason. Every person a reason to matter on that card. That was say whatever you want about Vince Russo. Say that you don't like the fact that he doesn't focus so much on wrestling. Say the fact that you don't like the fact that he sexualizes the women. But guess what? Those women got paid. Those women got notoriety. Don't believe me? Who's China? You know who she is. Oh, you don't? Well, that means you live under a fucking rock. Who's Sable? Yeah, you know who she is also. Oh, you don't? You live under a fucking rock. Miss Jackie. Same thing. It goes on and on and on and on. And guess what? It worked. It worked for the time, and it will work today even more because social media happens to be the case, right? People get over in many different shapes and sizes. If you choose to be offended over a television show that you pick and choose, by the way, because I don't see the same outrage for movies when they do fictionalized stuff that in theory, you would think would piss off some SJWs, right? Like you go into a movie theater and you have someone portraying a black person hanging from a tree or something like that in 2024, when the whole point of the movie is to accentuate the reason why racism is bad. You can't take that same type of mentality and put it within professional wrestling and try to cultivate the same storyline without getting people going, I'm outraged over what you're doing right now. It's the same thing that happened in television shows. It's the same thing that happened in movies. You hear it in music, but when it's done in professional wrestling, all of a sudden it's a bad thing. I think, in my opinion, not a Tony Khan, because I think he's way too safe. I think he's way too concerned with his image. I think someone like a Vince Russo would actually go out of his way to push the envelope. Not to the degree where I feel he'll overstep his boundaries, but enough where I feel he's not afraid of cancel culture to touch on touchy subjects. Not even touchy in a degree where you feel like you have to go completely overboard. Yes, like I acknowledge with how he operated back in the days. Yes, I know, like PMS and like, the aborted baby or all that. I get it. By the way, some of that shit that you guys try to attribute to Vince Russo, not all that shit was his idea, okay? For an example, Mark Henry and Mae Young wasn't Vince Russo's idea. At least I don't believe it was, because he wasn't there at the time of the company when she was doing that angle. Certain things like that, I feel like Vince Russo gets a bad rub for him anyways, even though I know he has done some terrible fucking things. I get it. But like I said, that's just my idea as far as an example who could replace Tony Khan. That's just my idea of the guy who could replace Tony Khan, the things that he should fundamentally start implementing within the company that I feel will make a drastic change right away. Regardless of who the fuck replaces Tony Khan, I want someone to replace Tony Khan. This can't go on. The way the company is structured at the moment, it will completely die if you keep letting it go in the path that it's currently going at the moment. You cannot let AEW continue to drop numbers. They're going down brackets at the moment. The next step is 600,000, folks. They weren't even that low when they were going head up with NXT. Let me remind you again. They are getting numbers that they split between audiences. Half of their audience from their peak is gone. And they're not learning from any of the mistakes that is so clear and obviously directly in front of their faces. We clearly see the problem what's occurring at the moment. We clearly see that no one is connecting with the wrestlers. You're bringing in way too much random bullshit into your shows. You're trying to have stories that aren't really stories. You're just touching on a fundamental basis of what is actually occurring that you want to say. Again, it's just the abstract reading of a fucking article, not the actual article in itself, but people want to call it stories. Never mind the annoying fan base. Never mind the image that you set up for yourself as far as being a nerd company. It's just the actual things that are ongoing in your company. It seems like someone like a Tony Khan doesn't want to look it directly in the eye and claim that it's a legitimate problem. And he will let that problem persist as long as he's in charge, as long as he's a leader. Because he can't be the one to look in the mirror and say that a mistake just occurred. That's what happens when you're that much in power. That's what happens when your dad and your mom doesn't tell you no. You get a big head about yourself. You got a blue chip on your shoulder that apparently everybody's afraid to knock off your guy. It's a bunch of things that I feel is currently happening in AEW, but I feel, like I said, in the end of the day, I brought up some good points. Maybe I didn't, maybe I don't. You can, again, I'm saying Vince Russo, but if you got somebody else better in mind that you feel will actually focus more so on the things that are completely different than the Tony Khan, then by all rights, insert any name that I feel will be completely different than Tony Khan, and we're right on the fucking money. But we can all agree at the moment, unless you're that much of a fucking cultist, that Tony Khan right now at the moment is a huge problem for AEW. We talked about this beforehand, right? This isn't the first video I talked about Tony Khan being the problem. But this is the first time I'm actually saying outright that it would probably benefit everybody if the guy was replaced. We got somebody better inside that position. They make changes in the company, and we see where those changes go going forward into the future. Now, if that's a bad idea, fuck, I guess I don't know what to say at this moment, right? I can't even give a generalized opinion in regards to what should be occurring going forward. If I can't do that to suggest the thing that's currently at the moment legitimately, by definition, objectively doing the thing currently, because he's the leader of the company, doing the thing currently, running the day-by-day basis, and the numbers are currently going down at the moment, obviously the person in charge gets the blame for it. If we can't agree on that, then I don't know what to say. Like I said, you're a cultist and you really don't give a shit about your company. All you care about, again, is just having a legitimate alternative to WWE. And like I said in the past, and I'll end it on this, alternative does not mean taking spaghetti and putting more fucking cheese on it. When I say alternative, I mean a different meal. A pizza, a hamburger, some chicken, some fries, anything but fucking pizza over and over and over and over and over again. That's a legitimate alternative. And until they can figure out a new recipe, I guess this is where we're going to be at the moment, right? Sucks, but it happens to be the case. And for the WWE fanboys out there who are going to probably be like, whoa, that's right, Devontae, tell them, yeah, hell yeah. Understand, this affects WWE also, because the more AEW fucks up, the less WWE takes them seriously. And you know what happens when WWE becomes complacent. So this goes out to y'all too. Chill the fuck out, and let's get rid of Tony Khan. Get out of that position. You can stay within AEW, but get the fuck out of the current position that you're in right now. As always, my name is Devontae, and I'll be catching you guys later. Deuces, P. Eyes.